Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to a new episode of Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we are going to be reviewing some exciting new spoilers from Brothers War. We've got some bangers this time around, so I can't wait to dive into them with you. But real quick, before we do that, I just want to remind you I do have a Patreon. The link is in the description below, and it would mean the world to me if you could be one of my first backers, because I'm currently trying to make this channel my full-time occupation, and you would really help me a lot if you contributed to that. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. And we're starting with Phyrexian Fleshgorger, a 7-mana, 7/5 artifact with Menace and Lifelink, which has Ward, pay, life equal to Phyrexian, Fleshgorger's power, and then it has one of the set's new mechanics, which is Prototype, which means that we can cast this for 1 colorless and 2 black, and have it become a 3/3 when it comes into play, and that permanently is going to replace its mana cost and its power and toughness, but its abilities are going to stay the same. So that's a really interesting kind of modular ability. It's a little bit like Kicker, like most abilities are, but it's a very cool one in that the stats change and the mana value changes are permanent. This actually in many ways allows it to be less broken than other mana modifying abilities. Having Ward for paying 7 life can mean that this can be very good when you're looking to finish off the game, and if you have ways to boost its power, it essentially can't be removed by targeted removal. In the meantime, it's going to be gaining you a ton of life, so that's pretty awesome. If you cast it for 3 mana, it's a little bit easier to remove, but the menace still makes it pretty relevant, so it's going to be relevant early or late game. I do see this as having more applications in Standard than Commander, but it's still a great card. Next up we have Urza, Powerstone Prodigy. It's a 2 colorless, 1 blue, legendary creature, human artificer, 1/3 with vigilance, and 1 tap. Draw a card, then discard a card, and whenever you discard 1 or more artifact cards, create a tapped Power Stone token. This ability triggers only once each turn. So this is kind of a cool commander. It's kind of rewarding you for playing a looter deck, a deck that's kind of like drawing cards and discarding cards, and one way you can do it during different people's turns. It's kind of interesting that you get a permanent boost, although it only works on artifacts, so it's an interesting card with a lot of restrictions that should be fun to build around. It's very similar to his brother Mishra, which we will see further on, although Mishra is both weaker and stronger at the same time. It's very strange. I do like that this is a different commander that we haven't seen yet, something that we haven't had a commander built around, so it should be exciting and fun for people to brew with. Next up we have Ashnod's Harvester, a 2 colorless, a 3/1 artifact creature construct with whenever Ashnod's Harvester attacks, exile target card from a graveyard and unearth for 1 colorless and 1 black. So Unearth is another of our returning mechanics. I really like this mechanic since it reminds me of Shards of Alara, which is one of my favorite blocks when I got back into Magic, and please Wizards, let's return to Alara someday. Anyway, I think Unearth is a really cool mechanic to bring back. However, this card is a little bit on the weaker side. I'm sure we will see it on some more interesting cards. Next up we have Titania, Voice of Gaia. This is our 3rd meld card of the set, and as a quick aside before we jump into the card, I think it's a bit annoying that Wizards is touting this as if meld is one of the big mechanics of the set when it's only on 3 individual cards. I guess 6 if you count all the combinations. But that means that this set has very few mechanics. It's basically only got Unearth, Prototype, and Meld is on 6 cards, and then it's Power Stone tokens as a mechanic, but that's not really a mechanic, it's just one kind of token. So basically this set feels kind of light on the mechanics if you ask me, although I guess we have to see how it pans out. Anyway, Titania, Voice of Gaia is a 1 colorless, green, legendary creature elemental with reach, and whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you gain 2 life. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 3 or more land cards in your graveyard and you own and control Titania, Voice of Gaia and a land named Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, exile them, then meld them into Titania, Gaia Incarnate. The other half of this is Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, which is a land that enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature, and it taps to add green, and then it has 2 colorless, green, create a 2/2 green bear creature, and then mill 3 cards. Activate only as a sorcery. So these two work really well together before they transform. She's going to reward you for milling land into your graveyard and gaining you life while you do so, and the other one is going to make some creature tokens to come up the board while you execute this game plan, and then you're just going to put those lands into your graveyard with the mill ability. So they both really work very well. In a commander deck, this should be really trivial to assemble, seeing as there's lots of ways in green to search up for a land. And Titania, Gaia Incarnate is a legendary creature elemental avatar with vigilance, reach, trample, haste. Titania, Gaia Incarnate's power and toughness are both equal to the number of lands you control, and when Titania enters the battlefield, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and then put 4+1/+1 counters on target land you control. It becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste, it is still a land. It's also interesting that this one doesn't actually have a meld cost. The requirement is super easy to meet, and you're just going to be able to have this massive beater really early in the game. I actually think that this is a very strong commander. It might even see competitive EDH play, because here's the thing, you can mill a bunch early on, and then once you do, all you need to do is find this land, put it into the battlefield, and then suddenly at the beginning of your 4th upkeep, this is going to transform into a huge thing, bring back all the lands that you've binned, and then just attack for an absolute ton because it has haste and trample. Obviously, it is very easy to remove. You do need some way to protect it, but I think this can be a very, very strong commander. Next up, we have Urza, Prince of Krug, the next form of Urza for 2 colorless, 1 blue, and 1 white. It's a legendary creature, human artificer, 2/3, with artifact creatures you control get +2/+2, and 6, create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control, except it's a 1/1 soldier creature in addition to its other types. So there's a theme in these, which is that the Urza seems to be a lot better than the Mishra in most cases, and this one is no different. So you're getting a permanent token that's going to be a 3/3, and it's a copy of something, so it can be a copy of a non-creature artifact too. It does make it a bit weaker to remove, but there's probably some combos that you can assemble by doing that. So it's a very interesting card, and it's just a cool bit of value. You can also just play it for the +2/+2 and just play a bunch of creatures that are already artifacts, and then all of your guys have a double anthem, so that's also really solid. Just very flexible and a cool commander. Hercule Master Wizard is a cool one. It's 1 colorless, 2 blue, legendary creature, human wizard advisor, 2/4. At the beginning of your end step, if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. For each card type amongst non-creature spells you've cast this turn, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is a really interesting card. So with this, you want to build a deck that has a similar amount of instant sorceries, planeswalkers, enchantments, and artifacts, and then you're going to be able to take advantage of this ability depending on when you have a big turn or not. I think it's a bit random. It doesn't really seem like it has enough power. It could be pretty good, and you might be refilling your hand quite often, but on average, you're probably just going to get 1 or 2 cards off of this. That being said, it seems pretty solid, and you can just build around 1 or 2 types if you want, and then make it pretty sure that you're going to hit 1 or 2 cards each time. Say if you put it in a deck full of instants and sorceries, you're probably going to be able to cast an instant and sorcery on your turn, and then find another instant and sorcery from the 5 cards. So it seems pretty good and pretty flexible in how it can be built around. Next up is Mishra, Tamer of Makfawa for 3 colorless, 1 black, 1 red. It's a legendary creature, human artificer, 4/4. Permanents you control have ward, sacrifice a permanent, so that's pretty strong. It's going to make it difficult to remove Mishra in the first place. Well, not difficult because everybody can do it, but it's going to be painful if you have to get rid of a land or get rid of one of your things to do so. And then it has each artifact card in your graveyard has an earth, 1 colorless, 1 black, and 1 red. So this one is not necessarily weaker than the Urza one. I know I said that before, but it's actually not that much weaker. It's actually a different kind of ability entirely. Unearth obviously means that you're only going to get 1 use out of it, but with some of the cards you can get an absolutely massive boost by getting something from the graveyard. You can also use this as a way to protect combos since you get another shot at the combo later in the game. So I think it's just a very flexible again and very cool commander. Next up we have Mishra, Excavation Prodigy for 2 colorless and 1 red, a legendary creature, human artificer, 2/1. It has haste, 1 colorless, tap, discard a card, draw a card, and whenever you discard 1 or more artifact cards, add red. This ability triggers only once each turn. So this is what I was talking about with the Erza one compared to the Urza one. This one is quite different, not necessarily weaker, although I would say on average having permanent stuff like the Power Stone tokens can be better. You also have to discard the card first with Mishra before you draw, because obviously red has to be worse than blue. That being said, the haste helps a little bit, and being able to use the mana that you get on anything is good. The problem is you can only trigger this ability once per turn, so it's actually not going to give you that much of a mana boost because you can't use it permanently, whereas the Power Stone tokens that you get from Urza can even be used to pay for his own ability later on in the line, so it just seems like a much stronger card. That being said, it's still a pretty cool commander, and I'm sure it has a place in a lot of 99s. Scrapwork Cohort is a 4 colorless artifact creature soldier, 5/3, and when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token, and then it has unearth, 2 colorless, and 1 white. So this is an interesting one because I don't think we've ever seen an unearth ability in white. But anyway, this is going to give you 2 bodies for 4 mana. 6-4 of stats, that's pretty solid. And then when you're reanimated, you can get a nice little attack in and still be left with a soldier artifact token behind, which is quite nice for decks that care about that, such as Urza. Next up is splitting the Power Stone for 2 colors and 1 blue. It's a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact and then create 2 tapped Power Stone tokens. If the sacrificed artifact was legendary, draw a card. I think it's going to work well with some artifacts that can sacrifice for values, such as Ugin's Nexus. This seems really sweet with that, but for the most part, it's not really going to be a purely ramp card. It's a bit hurt by the fact it's a sorcery too. And now we're getting to the really spicy ones. We have Teferi Temporal Pilgrim for 3 colors, blue, legendary planeswalker Teferi. It starts with 4 loyalty. Whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. Now you know any planeswalker that has a triggered ability that puts loyalty on them is probably trouble. His 0 ability is going to let you draw a card, which basically means it's a +1 ability. His -2 ability is going to create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It's weird seeing a 1/0 blue card that makes vigilance tokens, but this is really strong. And then his -12 is basically going to put someone out of the game, and it says -12, target opponent chooses permanent they control and returns it to its owner's hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control into their owner's library. So basically it's a Cyclonic Rift that's only going to affect 1 person. That's probably going to put them out of the game and make them very miserable. It's very easy to get this to -12. You could even do it on the turn you play it with a bit of setup. This is just a very, very strong card, and I think we'll have to be quite careful with this in Commander, because you better kill it on side or you might find yourself on the wrong side of that -12. And finally, the most exciting card is Gix Yogmoth Prater. Finally, we're getting a Gix card, and it's 1 colorless, black, for a 3/3 legendary creature, Phyrexian Prater. With whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, they draw a card. And then 4 colorless, black, discard X cards. Exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled this way without paying the mana cost. Woo! This is awesome. What a cool card. It's a Praetor, which is fantastic, and this is a really interesting design space for black. It's kind of political because it's going to make your opponents want to attack other people and not you, so they can get extra cards, and it can be really good in your deck if you build it with some small evasive creatures in it. You're going to be drawing a ton of cards, so stuff that can't be blocked, stuff with flying, stuff with menace, all of those are going to be really, really good with this commander. And then that 7 mana ability, which is going to let you discard your hand basically and then exile all those cards from an opponent's library. That can be absolutely brutal because you're going to be playing a ton of stuff for free. I think this is super fun. It's really strong though, and people are probably going to kill it on side, so make sure you have ways to protect it. Still, I think it's awesome, and I can't wait to build a deck around this, so look forward to that deck tech soon. So there you have it. This is our first big batch of spoilers from the Brothers War. What do you think about these cards? Are you interested in playing any in your decks? Please let me know in the comments section below. I read all of your comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel as we're growing right now. And until next time, take care.